presentation of the chairman of this occasion, the Vice Chancellor, the Queen's University of Technology, University of Technology, the Queen's of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria, surveyors of the Animal Kingdom, Governing Council of the Federal University of Technology, the protocol already established. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that the 27th and part of the honored. I is supposed to be honored by the presence of no other than Professor Isisi, senior advocate of the and he is the chairman of the Social Advisory Committee. I'm sure those of you now that is the main speech to you. So we are highly honored by his presence today. I also want to welcome all the invited guests, our former DCs, visiting DCs, and all other people that are here present. I want to say that we are looking forward to this lecture. I believe that it's going to be highly stimulating and it's going to address contemporary issues that are challenging the Nigerian polity. I therefore urge you to please be attentive and let us listen to Professor Sage. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again, you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Standing on the established protocol, may I please request the convocation lecturer of the day to stand. Professor Isejuwa Esonjumi Sage, a senior advocate of Nigeria, a learned silk, was born on 20th December 1940 in Ibadan, Nigeria. He is a thoroughbred Nigerian, married. The learned silk read when schools were schools. He is in the generation of Nigerians that had total education. He started from the University of Ife, Nigeria, 1962 to 1965. Went to Nigerian Law School, Lagos, Nigeria, 1965 to 1966. He birth certificate of the Council of Legal Education, BL, in 1966. He enrolled as barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, 22nd July 1966. He did stop at that. He went to King's College, Cambridge University, Cambridge, England, 1966 to 1970. He bagged second class upper division, LLB, in Ife, 1965. He had LLB, now LLM, International Law, Cambridge, 1968. PhD, International Law, Cambridge, 1970. Certificate of the Hague Academy of International Law, 1976. He became a learned silk, a senior advocate of Nigeria in 1998, 20 years still counting. He is a fellow Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, Nigeria, 2002. Fellow Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, 2009. He has always been first among equals, and this is evidenced in the following academic honors he bagged. National Scholarship for the Best Performance in University LLB Law Examinations 1963 to 1966. Sweet and Maxwell Publishers Prize for the Best Performance in Revenue Law in the Nigerian Bar Examinations 1966. Willoughby Prize for Best Overall Performance in Nigerian Bar Examinations 1966. He is a professional to the core. He started as a lecturer in law in University of Ife 1970 to 1979. And I now saw the difference between lecturer in law and professor of law. Because in 1979, he became professor of law, University of Ife. Between 1981 and 1982, he was the Dean Faculty of Law, University of Ife, Ile-Ife, Nigeria. Between 1982 and 1996, he was the Dean Faculty of Law, University of Benin, Benin City, Nigeria. Still very active. He is the managing partner in Sisage and Company, legal practitioners and consultants in Lagos. His areas of professional and teaching experience: public international law, constitutional law, law of contract, family law, law of succession, corporate law, business law, Nigeria customary law, and human rights and international humanitarian law. In the course of his stewardship to the nation, he has written many books and monographs. The Learned Silk has been found a worthy and patriotic Nigerian and has been engaged in many international and national legal consultancy and other appointments. United Nations Consultant on Namibia Colonialism and Racial Discrimination, 1984. Consultant to the Organization of African Unity and the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, on the OAU Protocol on Free Movement of Persons, Right of Residence and Establishment under the 1990 African Economic Community Treaty. Appointed consultant for the revision of Nigerian Minerals Law by the Nigerian Federal Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, 1993. Appointed member, Board of Trustees and Governing Board Negotiation and Conflict Management Group, Nigeria, 1996 to 2009. Consultant to UZ and the Office of Transition Initiative, 1998 to 2000. Mediator, Nigeria Security, Minting and Printing Company and Former Workers, Mediation, 2002 to 2003. Member, Delta State Think Tank on Development, 1999 to 2007. Chairman, Delta State Forum for the Review of the 1999 Constitution, 2002. Member, National Political Reform Conference, 2005, and member, the Patriots Organization. Presently, he is the chairman, Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption from August 2015 to date. In all this, he has never relegated his constituency, that is the legal constituency, to the background. He is a member of the following: Solicitor and Advocate, Supreme Court of Nigeria, Body of Senior Advocates of Nigeria, the International Law Association, the Nigerian Society of International Law, American Society of International Law, the Nigerian Bar Association, trustee and member of Governing Board Negotiation and Conflict Management Group, Nigeria, Fellow Institute of Chartered Arbitrators, Nigeria, Fellow Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me in inviting the Learned Silk, erudite professor, an academic to the core, a visionary Nigerian, a man with zero tolerance to corruption, and a family man to the president. You are welcome.
Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, other members of Council, representative of the Chief of Naval Staff, visiting Vice Chancellors and other heads of tertiary institutions, former Vice Chancellors of Federal University of Technology, Mina, the Registrar, visiting registrars, university librarian, professors, deans, heads of departments, invited guests, staff and students, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I feel highly honored to be invited to give the 218th convocation lecture of this great institution. I thank the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor. I'm sorry I omitted that in what is printed. You can take that omission as very related to advancing age. The Vice Chancellor, the Chairman and members of Council and Senate for this very high privilege. The title of this lecture was deliberately chosen to express and articulate my impression of Nigeria and the anguish and frustrations I am personally experiencing about the behavior and conduct and orientation of the Nigerian elite. My motive, this is not in the paper, just added, my motive for this lecture could be found in the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 17, and I quote, "Learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, plead for the widows." End of quote. In the Nigerian context, millions of wretched and oppressed countrymen and women are like orphans and helpless widows. Why animal kingdom? Well, in the first place, man is biologically an animal. Indeed, all human beings are animals. But we are supposed to have developed and evolved into superior thinking, intelligent, refined human beings, controlling all the lower species of animals. Indeed, as the good Lord stated in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 28, after creating man in his own image, it is stated as such in the Bible, chapter 26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Chapter 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Chapter 28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." I am not unconscious of the apparent contradiction between the evolutionary theory and the Bible. But I feel that God could have created man over centuries, because 1,000 years for man is but a night for God. Now, the lower animals have some very primitive and negative instincts, which in man would normally be described as barbarous. Animal culture. Animals live to eat. In other words, their primary devotion and objective in life is to eat, sleep and eat. And in fact, if you watch animals everywhere, goats, cows, all of them, they are bending down all the time looking for food if they are not sleeping. There's nothing else they do but look for food unless when they are sleeping. They are permanently in search of food, whether as predators, looking for the flesh of other animals, or as plant and grass eaters. Human beings are supposed to have evolved beyond that point. We should eat in order to live. In other words, food should sustain us so that we could do greater things, and not live in order to eat like lower animals. But what do we do in this country? Once given a position of trust and responsibility, our elites go into a feeding frenzy. They loot billions, acquire 50 houses, have mansions in the UK, USA, Spain, the Caribbean, and so on, never minding that they will never spend a night in any of these. All they do after this is to eat and eat without stopping. A federal minister once accused another politician, who was himself later appointed a minister, for not being grateful for being invited to come and eat. It did not occur to that minister that he was called to serve and not to eat. Another characteristic of the lower animals is that they are fully engaged in the practice of dog eat dog and the survival of the fittest. To give an example of this behavior, not only with the carnivorous animals, that's lions, tigers, hyenas, cheetahs, leopards, and so on, kill and eat herbivorous, that is antelopes, buffaloes, giraffes, zebras, and so on. Some members of the same species kill each other, and in some cases eat each other. When some members of the political, public, and business elite loot our collective assets, the immediate consequence is massive unemployment, unequipped clinics and hospitals, wretched schools, colleges and universities without facilities, bad roads, lack of electricity power, and so on. And then we have deaths on the roads, deaths at hospitals, deaths at maternity facilities following. Militants, kidnappers, armed robbers, murderers, suicides are also a direct product of this Nigerian culture. In a paper published in 2013, Professor Bolaji Owasoye, currently Executive Secretary of PACAC and incoming Chairman of ICPC, demonstrated the devastating national consequence of this predatory nature. Regarding looting attributed to ex-governors, ex-ministers, ex-legislators, public servants, bankers, and businessmen between 2007 and 2013, which came to a total of 1.35 trillion naira, roughly $7.05 billion. Much more these days. Owasoye brought home to Nigerians the opportunity cost of the banditry as follows. 1/3 of the stolen funds, just 1/3, could have provided 635.18 kilometers of roads, 36 ultra-modern hospitals per state, 183 schools, educated 3,974 children from primary to tertiary at 25.24 million per child, and would have built 20,062 units of 2-bedroom houses. This clearly epitomizes a dog-eat-dog characteristic. There is devastation in all spheres of human activity, and the future of our youth has definitely been eaten. Another characteristic of animals, particularly male lions, is that when they want to join an existing pride of lions, they will kill baby lions fathered by the previous male in the pride. Maybe the previous male had died or had been driven away by the new man. This new lion will kill all the babies of the previous pride before going on to father his own children. To the male lions, only their gene should survive. How different from that is the deliberate actions of the elite to subject Nigeria to a scorched earth polity, making life in Nigeria uninhabitable for youths, who then prefer to go and die in the Sahara and in Libya, while the children of the culprits are in the best schools in the world, like Eton, Harvard, Yale, Oxford, and Cambridge, living a dream life. They love their offspring to a fault, but could not give a damn about the survival of the children of ordinary Nigerians. What does the popular say in monkey they walk, baboon they chop? In the animal kingdom, if a cheetah or leopard makes a kill, those are small predators that are smallish in size. If a cheetah and a leopard makes a kill, before it can settle down to feed, lions, which are bigger hyenas, will chase it away or kill it if it is stubborn and refuses to escape. They will then devour the kill to the pain and frustration of the poor, weaker animal, which usually is watching from a distance. In this country, the hardworking people do back-breaking work to create our wealth. The few members of the greedy elite consume all that wealth. By ILO standards, no earner of remuneration from the public service is supposed to earn more than 100 times the income of the lowest paid worker. In this country, whilst the minimum wage is 18,000 a month, there are fellow public servants who award themselves about 30 million a month. That is more than 1,666 times the minimum wage. 1,666 times. No, it's a mistake. I ask that that be corrected. 1,666 times the wage of another person. Those who work in luxurious air-conditioned chambers collect wardrobe allowance, utility allowance, furniture allowance, newspaper allowance, housing allowance, entertainment allowance, domestic allowance, research allowance, even hardship allowance. Hardship in an air-conditioned, soft-cushioned hall where they are served hand and foot by myriads of people. On the contrary, the ordinary worker is lucky to have his basic salary. If this is not monkey they walk and baboon they chop, I don't know what it can be. I can go on with illustrations of the theme about the animal kingdom, but I think that I have said what I've said so far is enough to make the point. The judiciary. The judiciary is more important. On 23rd June 2017, the Court of Appeal gave a judgment in the case of Justice Njagiwa and Federal Republic of Nigeria. The appellant was a former judge in the High Court of Kano State who was charged by the EFCC for corruption. He filed a preliminary objection to the charge on the ground that since discipline of judges under the National Judicial Council had been provided for in Section 153(1) and the 3rd Schedule Part 1 of the Constitution, no judicial officer could be arrested and tried for any criminal offense until he has been put through the disciplinary process of the NJC, found guilty, and dismissed or retired compulsorily. So the NJC is an intermediary between justice and the corrupt judges. and where the NJC, which we have found has occurred so many times, hastily or wrongfully clears that judge, that is the end, even though there's clear evidence. To give you an example, one of the judges whose house was invaded and arrested, billions of naira and millions of dollars, was eventually asked to go back to work by the NJC. A month or two later, the NJC itself found it was wrong and now dismissed him. This argument that judges should first be vetted and disciplined by the NJC before they can be prosecuted was rejected by at the High Court level in Lagos, but shockingly upheld by the Court of Appeal. The practical effect of this is that judicial officers have, by this legislative ruling, because the court is not supposed to legislate, have been conferred with immunity from criminal prosecution for their crimes, particularly for corruption. As I speak, many judges currently under trial for corruption have applied for their cases to be struck out on the basis of this ruling. The gravity of this ruling on the fight against corruption cannot be overstated. Without the willingness and commitment of the judiciary to the anti-corruption struggle, it will fail ab initio, that is, right from the beginning. It will not take off at all. Now, if the judges are claiming immunity from prosecution for corruption, grievous bodily harm, and even murder, because that's the implication, you cannot touch them until the NJC has found them guilty. So if they even cut off somebody's neck, nothing can be done. The police who sees it cannot arrest them. How can, if judges claim this immunity from prosecution for criminal acts, how can they morally sit in judgment over other sectors of the population who are not claiming immunity? Should suspected criminals try others for crimes? That is the question. Now, the other devastating logic of this ruling and its wider implication is that, morally at least, that anyone who belongs to a professional group that has a disciplinary body could justifiably claim immunity from prosecution unless he first undergoes the disciplinary process of his own association and is found guilty and punished. So, law enforcement, security and anti-corruption agencies, by this logic, should not arrest the following sample of professionals until they are first tried and punished by their professional associations. It follows. It can't be judges alone. 1. Thus a doctor cannot be arrested for malpractice, causing grievous bodily harm or even death of a patient until his association finds him guilty. This will apply to lawyers who must first be tried and punished by the NBA before they can be arrested and charged for any criminal offense against their clients, like embezzlement of clients' funds, illegal sale of clients' assets, money laundering for clients, and so on. So this applies equally to engineers, because they all have associations, accountants, architects, quantity surveyors, land surveyors, estate agents, provided they have associations which have disciplinary panels. So you can see that at the end of the day, all these agencies will be powerless, completely powerless, toothless. They just exist on paper. Now, the ruling was relying on constitutional power. Let us go back to the Constitution. There is another body that enjoys the same sort of provision as the judiciary. If we must go constitutional, the police have a commission for their promotion, discipline, and so on. See Section 153 and Schedule 3M of the 1999 Constitution. If we are to adopt the Court of Appeal's argument about implied immunity all policemen should be immune from arrest and trial until after discipline by the Police Service Commission. This will also equally apply to the Federal Civil Service Commission because they have disciplinary processes. Now, if this happens, there will be absolute chaos in this country if this attitude prevails. This clearly takes us to George Orwell's Animal Farm, where all animals are equal, but a particular species of animal was more equal than the others. Let me make it clear. There is no provision in any law or in the Constitution that provides immunity for judges against criminal and civil actions. Only the president, vice president, governors, and deputy governors are so protected. Its section should be section 308. Bolaji? Well, Bolaji? Is it 308? Yeah, it should be section 308. You can change it, not 208, or the Constitution. This judicial pronouncement of immunity for judges is clearly judge-made law. That should be very clear. And why do I emphasize that? Judges are not empowered to make law. This is the responsibility of the legislature. I have repeated oftentimes that the greatest protection and armor of a judge is his high moral authority. Prior to the 1999 Constitution and before Nigeria reached its nadir of public morality, no judge was ever arrested or tried for crimes. They did not need legal immunity from arrest and trial because they had high moral authority. Would a Mohammed Bello, Chukwuemeka Edigbe, Andrews Otutu Obaseki, Kayode Esho, Anthony Anyagolu, Augustine Namani, Adolphus Garibi White, Chukwudifo Oputa, Louis Umbanefo, Adetunji Adefaransi, J.I.C. Taylor, or Odo Odoma, to name a few. Could they have had a need for constitutional, legislative, or judge-made immunity? The answer is major no. They had high moral authority. There's no protection greater than that. Throughout military regimes, those judges I just mentioned and their cohorts declared many military degrees illegal. I was one of the beneficiaries of that when I was kicked out of the University of Benin on the basis that the president had authorized my dismissal. The president, not the visitor, the president, although the office is held by the same person, but they wrote president. We went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the president has no authority to expel people or terminate appointments in the university. Only the visitor had that power. And so we were invited back, and we all went back. To give you another example, what high moral authority can be, it's not stated here. Sometime in 1983, the tower of the major telephone company we used to have there, I've forgotten the name. Nitel Tower got bombed in Lagos, 1983, under Shagari. Shagari was about to go to India, in fact, but he cancelled it, or I think he still went. And the chief fire officer of Lagos was arrested and sacked from his job for not taking prompt action or even for allowing the fire to take place. That was in 1983. No, the action happened in 1983, but everything dragged on to 1984 when the Buhari government, military government came in. And they justified his being sacked at that time without any process on the ground that there was a decree, number 2, that empowered the government to sack anybody without trial and without going to court, without the right or objection of suing for their rights. But this man went to court. The government was very confident that the outcome would be straight dismissal. And really, he lost at the High Court, He lost at the Court of Appeal. Then it went to the Supreme Court, made up of these men whose names I have just mentioned. They were there. After a lot of philosophical arguments, they came down to this. This action occurred in 1983. Buhari government came in 1984. And they held a government that was not in existence when the act occurred cannot legislate on what happened there. That is high moral authority. They were bold because they had nothing against them. They were not corrupt. It is their character that upheld them. Everybody was afraid of those judges. Even the military were afraid of them because of the high moral authority, not by legislative protection. If your mind is clear that you've done nothing, you don't need immunity. This judgment, therefore, is a self-preservation measure meant to protect judges from past, present, and future prosecution for acts of corruption and other types of criminality. The Nigerian elite and total lack of values. When I see the manner the tiny, a very tiny really, elite, less than 1% of our population, is treating the already downtrodden masses of our country in order to enjoy an opulent criminal lifestyle, I am forced to conclude that they are engaged in an unsustainable assault on our senses and collective patrimony. We have to ask ourselves what the problem really is. We are definitely overwhelmed by an epidemic of kleptomania. But do we also have a collective psychiatric problem? Why would a person loot what he cannot spend in 10 lifetimes, whilst exposing the rest of the population to misery, hunger, poverty, wretchedness, and even death? I am never tired of pointing out that the end of the First Republic was followed by a rapid decline in the moral tone of public life and loss of such values as honesty, integrity, honor, and the service ethic. Since then, with each succeeding republic, please go and do your research, the quality of the political elite has declined sharply with every succeeding republic. Nigeria has been plunged deeper and deeper into a socio-political wilderness, or worse still, a jungle overwhelmed by indiscipline, greed, insensitivity, corruption, and mindless violence. This is a country naturally endowed by God with limitless resources, has nevertheless become a caricature of harrowing poverty, destitution, and suffering humanity. There's one joke that is doing the rounds, where people based in Asia and America were querying God. Why are you so unfair to others in the manner you treated Nigeria? What is the love you have, special love you have for them that you don't have for the rest of us? They have no earthquakes, they have no monsoon, they have no, what are the other things? All those things that hit America at intervals. Before one finishes, another one hits them. They don't have any of that. Why do you love them? What have they done to deserve all this? And God laughed and said, look at the people like put there. There are enough disaster on their own. Conclusion and recommendations. It is obvious that things cannot remain like this for much longer, or there will be a cataclysm. It is clear to me that given the proclivities of the privileged elite, Nigeria is not ready for the operation of a liberal democracy. The Nigerian elite is not mature enough to manage a liberal democracy. All we have done is to abuse, and abuse again all the privileges of law, human rights, and democracy conferred on us by the Constitution. All you hear is that the man is innocent until he's proved guilty. Meanwhile, you've stolen the whole world. And because lash on this and allow the man to go away with his loot. We must now utilize our creative powers to operate our constitution without giving room for these abuses. We need democracy, but not democracy, which we are practicing now, where all members of a legislative chamber will abandon the chamber and accompany one of their members charged with a criminal offense to intimidate a lawful tribunal. This has two implications. One, it's an endorsement of the alleged infraction. Two, abandonment of duties for which enormous remunerations have been self-awarded by the same people. Also, we cannot have a situation in which the legislature, in a fit of petulance and temper, rejects every bill, refuses to confirm every executive nomination, postpones consideration of the budget, and refuses to consider it because the executive will not be dictated to regarding officials it appoints to carry out executive responsibilities. Legislature wants to appoint people in the executive positions, which turns our constitution upside down. Because the executive has refused, we have all these childish reactions. Also, we cannot have a situation in which those who sit in judgment over others for the transgression of law declare themselves above the law. We cannot tolerate a situation in which 30 or 60 senior advocates of Nigeria accompany a colleague under trial to the court in order to intimidate the trial judge. This is a gross misconduct and indiscipline on the part of the senior advocates. So what do we do? I propose that the executive, which is a real driver of governance, applies strength, power, and discipline in operating our democratic dispensation. Lee Kuan Yew did this in Singapore and rescued the country from poverty, misery, chaos, and underdevelopment by firm and determined use of power under democratic infrastructure. Today, Singapore is a first world country and a popular destination for Nigerian elites who love good things as long as it's not in their own country. In my online search about Lee Kuan Yew, the following achievements were attributed to him, and I quote it: Singapore had problems with political corruption, just as we have. Lee introduced legislation giving the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau greater power to conduct arrests, search, call up witnesses, and investigate bank accounts and income tax returns of suspected persons and their families. Lee believed that ministers should be well paid in order to maintain a clean and honest government. On the 21st of November 1986, Lee received a complaint of corruption against the then Minister of National Development, Ted Chiang-wan. Lee was against corruption and he authorized the CPIB to carry out investigations on Ted, but Ted committed suicide before any charges could be pressed against him. That's a man of honor. The Nigerian will defend and fight with his last blood and refuse to resign, not to talk of suicide. In 1994, the same Lee Kuan Yew proposed to link the salaries of ministers, judges, and top civil servants to the salaries of top professionals in the private sector, arguing that this would help recruit and retain talent to serve in the public sector. More has been said of him. As Singapore's Prime Minister from 1959 to 1990, Lee presided over many of Singapore's advancements. Singapore's gross national product per capita rose from $1,240 in 1959 to $18,437 in 1990. The unemployment in Singapore dropped from 13.5%, which is low by Nigerian standards, in 1959 to 1.7% in 1990. The external trade increased from 7.3 billion in 1959 to 205 billion in 1990. In other areas, life expectancy at birth for Singaporeans rose from 65 years in 1960 to 74 years in 1990. In this country, I believe, is 45 years. The population of Singapore increased from 1.6 million in 1959 to 3 million in 1990. The number of public flats in Singapore rose from 22,975 in 1959 to 667,575 in 1990. The Singaporean literacy rate increased from 52% in 1957 to 90% in 1990. Telephone lines per Singaporeans increased from 3 in 1960 per 100 Singaporeans, increased from 3 in 1960 to 38 in 1990. Visitor arrivals, that is tourists in Singapore, rose from 0.1 million, that's 100,000 in 1960 to 5.3 million in 1990. Now I come to a crucial point. On the other hand, many Singaporeans have criticized Lee as authoritarian, as intolerant of dissent, citing his numerous, mostly successful attempts to sue political opponents and newspapers who express an unfavorable opinion. Many suing, it's not that he threw them into detention, and they are not happy about that. So why tell wild stories that are not true? Reporters Without Borders, an international media pressure group, requested Lee and other senior Singaporean officials to stop taking libel suits against journalists. Why not? If the journalists are telling lies. I may ask this question. This intolerance of indiscipline, this harshness, have they anything to do with Singapore's phenomenal development? That's a very important question. The attitude of the strong man in a country that's underdeveloped, that doesn't know how to use liberal democracy. What effect do you have a strong leader who will stamp his foot down and insist that things be done properly? That's the question I'm asking. Another example, in our very backyard in East Africa, is Rwanda, a country that was brought down to a comatose state by genocide and crimes against humanity, during which over 1 million citizens were massacred. Today, under the firm rule of Paul Kagame, within a democratic framework, I want to stress that, Rwanda has developed so rapidly that it has overtaken Nigeria in terms of standard of living, quality of life, social development, and infrastructure, and so on. Of Kagame, it has been universally acknowledged as follows. Rwanda's economy has grown rapidly over Kagame's presidency, with per capita income, per capita gross domestic product, purchasing power parity estimated at 1,592 in 2013 compared to 567 in 2000. Annual growth between 2004 and 2010 averaged 8%. Kagame's economic policy is based on liberalizing the economy, privatizing state-owned industries, reducing red tape for businesses, and transforming the country from an agricultural to a knowledge-based economy. Kagame has stated that he believes Rwanda can emulate economic development of Singapore since 1960 and achieving middle-income country status is one of the central goals of his Vision 2020. Now, not to everybody has been praising Kagame. Finally, those who have studied Kagame's transformational contribution to Rwanda's growth have made the following observations, and I want us to look at this critically. Most observers describe Kagame's personality as one of seriousness and intelligence. Good. Richard Grant, writing in London Daily Telegraph, described Kagame as radiating a quality of intense seriousness, which is both impressive and intimidating. That's the word I'm interested in. And intimidating. Because it goes along with the others. If there is no fear in an underdeveloped country where there is no standard, there can be no progress. Romeo Delare, commander of the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda, during the Rwandan genocide, described Kagame as having a a studious air, fine, that didn't disguise his hawk-like intensity. That's the term I want, hawk-like intensity. Kagame has a highly dominant personality, which he uses to enforce his rule, and to ensure that his vision for the country is followed. American journalists, and to ensure that the vision for his country is followed. American journalist Stephen Kinzer, who wrote the biography of 1,000 Years. 1,000 Years is the other name for Rwanda. In collaboration with Kagame himself, describes Kagame as one of the most intriguing leaders in Africa. Then he goes on. Kinzer credits Kagame with leadership skills that have fostered Rwanda's rebellion following the genocide, but cites a personality of chronic impatience, barely suppressed anger, and impulsive scorn of critics. Those are significant. Personality of chronic impatience, barely suppressed anger, dominating personality. If you compare this to what I said about Lee Kuan Yew, you can see that there's a relationship between development and strong leadership. I request the audience to please note the following. The write-up just quoted refers to Kagame's personality as including chronic impatience, barely suppressed anger, impulsive scorn for critics, international and hawk-like intensity are all used. You can't make omelettes without breaking eggs. It is this impatience, this barely suppressed anger, and impulsive scorn for critics that propelled his strong and firm leadership, leading to his country's salvation from poverty, misery, and underdevelopment. We need a leader with suppressed anger, hawk-like intensity, to eradicate corruption and indiscipline in our public life. Korea, South Korea, is probably the most developed country in the world. Please don't take my word for it, visit it. It's more developed than European countries and America and Canada. It is the most developed country in the world today. Visit the place and you will see what I'm talking about. USA, Canada, UK, even Germany cannot match the level of development South Korea has achieved in electronics, power, infrastructure, manufacturing, digitalization, environmental standards, and so on. This feat was achieved under the illiberal rule, which I don't subscribe to, but illiberal rule of Park Chung-hee. Today, South Korea is the world's leading model of a non-corrupt society. So there's some correlation there. And you'll recall that they removed their president a few months ago because she was corrupt. And that corruption was not a serious one. It's like a lady who she was friendly to was giving some information which would help that lady to do well in her business. That was all. And she was removed. South Korea will not tolerate corruption of any sort. Because Park Chung-hee, who introduced that ethic, he has died or assassinated, but the ethic has stayed behind, and that is now the culture of South Korea. I said this feat was achieved under the liberal rule of Park Chung-hee. Today, yes, I do not advocate a Park Chung-hee type of hard and uncompromising government. We need a balance between order and a society that is running riot like our own, where anything goes and criminals act with impunity and then turn their noses at the rest of us. It is widely accepted that Park Chung-hee was authoritarian, but he made up for this by his miraculous upliftment of Korea from a third world to a first world country. This is what has been said about him, and I quote, Park is ranked by the public as the greatest South Korean president, but he remains a controversial figure in modern South Korea political discourse and among the Korean populace in general. While some see him as a resolute leader who helped sustain the miracle of the Han River, which reshaped and modernized Korea, others see him as an authoritarian dictator who quashed political opposition and dissent whilst prioritizing economic growth and contrived social order at the expense of civil liberties. To confirm his incredible achievements, the following has also been stated about him. Park is credited with playing a pivotal role in the development of South Korea's tiger economy. Remember the Asian tigers. By shifting its focus to export-oriented industrialization. When it came to power in 1961, South Korea's capita per income was only $72. North Korea was the greater economic and military power on the peninsula due to the North's history of heavy industries such as the power and chemical plants and the large amounts of economic, technical, and financial aid it received from other communist bloc countries, such as the Soviet Union, East Germany, and China. Well, we know what South Korea has become today, one of the greatest economic powers in the world. A sign of the growth of South Korean economy was that in 1969, there were 200,000 television sets in operation in South Korea. By 1979, there were 6 million television sets in South Korea. In 1969, only 6% of South Korean families owned a television. By 1979, 4 out of every 5 Korean families owned a television. It is time Nigeria engaged in deep reflection about how to get out of this chaotic state of affairs. In a book written by an American national, Karl Mayer, about Nigeria, entitled "This House Has Fallen" in the year 2000, long before the present deterioration and degeneration of our nation and its peoples, he made the following perceptive remarks, and I quote him: "Designed by alien occupiers, abused by army rule for 3/4 of his brief life, the Nigerian state is like a battered and bruised elephant, staggering on an abyss with the earth crumbling under its feet. Should it fall, the impact will shake the rest of West Africa." We cannot rise from the present quagmire without confronting with some force the enemies of society. I repeat, you cannot make an omelette without breaking an egg. I don't need to say more. The executive branch of government should reclaim the driving seat of government, be firm but fair, be resolute, and be totally intolerant of the present indiscipline, greed, insensitivity, and irresponsibility of the tiny privileged elite. He must put his foot down and say no more. Democracy is not a riotous party where impunity, greed, irresponsibility, and indiscipline reign. Something has to be done now before it's too late, and the time is now.
Indeed, an erudite professor stating clearly what we look like in Nigeria.
The First Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe this lecture has been very, very illuminating in terms of the challenges facing Nigeria today, in terms of the indiscipline and the locust invasion by the tiny elites in the Nigerian society. I want once again thank Professor Sadi. Please, another round of applause for Professor Sadi. Thank you very much, sir. As you know, with this kind of occasion, I believe that a number of people want to get some clarifications, make some observation, and therefore we are going to open the floor for a few questions, and I want to seek the indulgence of the eminent professor to please give us that opportunity. A few questions. So I'm going to start from the right. Professor Kabiru, Professor Kolon, Professor Usobo, okay, and Professor Dukia. So we start from there, then we come to this side. Yes, Professor Kabiru.
Thank you, the chairman of this occasion. First and foremost, Professor Wasitagi, I want to salute you. I want to salute you for illuminating our minds on the reality of this country. I want to salute you that despite being with the government, you are saying this. And so, the question is, where do we go from here? Where lies the solution? Prof, you are close to the president. And from what you have said, the presidency requires to be more resolute and fair. What do you think in your position you can do to make the direction we are going change for the better? So that you have the likes of the characters you have mentioned, the Paru, the Ghana, and others. Because we on this side, we cannot reach out there to impress on the polity to change direction in the way we are running our affairs. This is my
Mr. Speaker. My question is, your job is a practical one. You are close to the President and the Presidency, as the last speaker has said. In your own judgment, sir, how will you assess, how will you judge your acceptability, the impact of your advisory role to the presidency on corruption? Because it is one thing to advise, and it is another to heed to the advice. So from the role you have played so far, how will you assess us? In terms, how will you assess the work that you are doing in terms of being accepted, in terms of the impact, in terms of the goodness and the fitness of your work to the presidency? Thank you.
Prof, from your lecture, I'm not too sure whether we have hope. The judiciary, if the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, and if the judiciary, as you have said, looks like it's compromised, and these are the people that will really lead this fight on corruption. And if the situation, the picture you have painted, it looks like we don't have trust of the judiciary. Are we wasting time? Do we have for now a Paul Kagame, you and you in Nigeria? Do we have, for now, are we hoping, if we are hoping to have one, do you have somebody in mind? Finally, sir, the law, or what you have quoted
says nobody is supposed to earn 100 times the salary of the lowest earner. We know our minimum wage is 18,000 naira for now. Why is it that some people in this country are earning 1,600 times instead of 100 times? Is it that they don't know, or they don't know international understanding? Are they willing to change? Are they willing to come and comply with this? The tiny elite you mentioned, the tiny elite. No, I think we are saying now is the time. I agree with you. Now is the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You want to take a lot from the Holy Book. And I want to take a lead from that also. Prophet Emmanuel, at a point in time in his own ministry, he told God that he wanted to die because he's the only one that is standing for the truth. Sir, I would like to ask, if you are aware of all these scenario institutions in Nigeria, what's your own view, sir? Concerning the human activists who are agitating and calling for the eradication of capital punishments in Nigeria. Thank you, sir.
This side, Dr. Shaku up there, the person up there, the person in light and Jude. Thank you very much, sir. From the team of the lecture, Nigerian Tribes of an Animal Kingdom. Professor, sir, where lies the call for restructuring? Or you do not subscribe to this call? If you do, sir, what is your own definition of restructuring? Secondly, sir, given your position as chairman, Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, and your destination on strong new leadership, would you say President Muhammadu Buhari is on course? Thank you, sir.
My name is Emmanuel Abba. I'm a journalist. My question here is you mentioned three models of those who have used strong armed tactics, suppress civil liberties, and also apply some unconstitutional means to do away with corruption and leave their country to the environment as their citizens desired. In Nigeria, compare this to in Nigeria, do you suggest, or are you an advocate of such strong armed tactics so that we can do away with corruption? Secondly, sir, as presidential advisor to the president on anti-corruption, there are so many allegations of selectivity in fighting corruption. And you mentioned people like Kagame, the South Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, and the Lee Kuan Yew. I believe their fighting corruption, as you mentioned here, has been only pursued. So don't you think that we can copy them and then actually get out of our list?
My name is Abdullah Hussein. Sir, Prof, I would like us to ask you on some issue that's really happening in the country. You can to be precise, just in case of EFCC chairman confirmation. I think from my little understanding, I noticed you say the situation because they wanted him out. Then before you advise the president that even without confirming, it can be the chairman or acting to say. So if I will ask you, sir, what is the power of your committee regarding to advising the president on those issues? Because there, as you have said in your lecture, there is a lot of animal tendency in average Nigeria. If this man wanted this thing and the House said no, what is the possible way out? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Prof. From your lecture, it appears the legislature and the judiciary have to blame. The executive for now, from what I can get from your lecture, is the one to help to lead this fight. Now, is it possible with Nigeria's constitutional and legal framework on ground for the executive alone to effect that change? Considering the fact that the judiciary has a strong constitutional power central in the legislature, and the executive alone, in most times, even with the prevailing now, even report coming from a military background, has that dictatorial tendencies to exercise, as this other president mentioned, is being helpless with the situation. So, I want you to tell us what exactly can the executive do and actually succeed in this fight. Thank you.
Questions from students now. Yes, Latif. And Zahabina and the lady up there. So Latif and the lady up there.
System put together the convention lecturer. I would like to ask this question. Let's imagine that Nigeria as a country, all of what we are facing today, we inherited it. Are you going to say that with the growth and the gifts and the resources we have in this country, we cannot pay out those deficits? Because what I'm saying today in our country, it's deep burden on our educational system. Because what we see in the system is what we see out there. Most of us are promoted, we are robotic in nature, we are not going to think. So the system is not actually helping, sir. So my question is, the fight we are fighting is more what we are doing at the surface. We need to go back to the root. So how can the president and the leadership of the country take that decision for us to be taken out of the second colonization? Because we are still we are still in that and our colonizers through the puppet they installed for us. Thank you, sir.
Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. I am Hajara Usman Idris. Please, my question is, no nation can develop beyond its educational system. Sorry, I am a graduate of science education and I'm more concerned on our educational system. Our educational system has no weight at all on the weighing balance of the international standard. Before the elections that brought our president to power, we expected, me especially, I hope that before I graduate, the educational system will be somewhere, at least in the international standard, please. Fighting corruption in Nigeria, it has to start from the nursery class, from kindergarten. How hard are you advising our president in case he has forgotten that what made people like me not went into power is because from history, he fought hard in his last days in power. That was when he was a military man. And please, considering the current situation in Nigeria, where people say what they want, what can Buhari do, our president, to fight corruption in Nigeria in the educational system, and how hard is he doing it, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, I know that there are many interests, but please, we are running out of time, so let us allow the lecturer to attend to these several questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen who have asked questions or will comment. What can PACAC do regarding this present situation? PACAC is a think tank. It gives advice. The presidency is entitled to reject the advice. So, but we can repeat it and add more arguments, as we have seen now. So that's the best I can say about that, but I assure you that we will press on and try to make an impact on government decisions in these areas in the future. Another question is, if the judgment is upheld, then the position of the country will be hopeless. I think I don't completely subscribe to that. I think there are things we can do as a country and as a government, and it's not everything that one proposes that can be said in public. Okay, on the issue of capital punishment, I will ask you directly. I strongly support capital punishment. I don't understand why Nigerians are feeling over-sophisticated, trying to imitate Europe, America, and so on, where they have reached such a standard that, one, murders and other types of crimes are very low. They have a culture of obeying the law, of carrying out their responsibilities, of discipline. And we Nigerians, we know it, because as we say very often, a Nigerian who is driving against the traffic in Nigeria, when he gets to London, would behave like an Englishman in every way.
He's disciplined. He's law-abiding. But the minute he gets to Acacia, he becomes a wild animal. So, okay, on restructuring, everybody knows that I'm a strong advocate of restructuring. But I think the president made a very pertinent point, which doesn't seem to have been appreciated. The restructuring is necessary. So also is good governance, proper processes, absence of indiscipline. That's what we call processing or processes. That's very important. And I think the message he gave was that we should concentrate in proper processes. That's the elimination of corruption, of indiscipline, and of greed, and be more organized in the way we operate in our various offices, more constructive. That doesn't rule out restructuring, which in my view has a different purpose, although complementary. That is to make states more independent and more productive, create a culture of competition which will lead to development. That's the way I see restructuring. Okay. Yes, is Buhari on course in what he's doing? And then there's the other question. Someone said the Buhari of today is different from the Buhari of 40 years ago. I agree with that. He himself has said it on a few occasions that this is a democratic dispensation and he has to behave democratically. And remember recently he was saying that you have to reflect and reflect and reflect. Well, some of us feel that a little dose of what used to be will help. And that message has to be carried to the appropriate quarters. If we are going to move forward, we cannot be overindulgent about what is happening in this country today. Nigerians are easily follow discipline. Once they see that there's a consequence, and the consequence is swift, we see us behaving well. When Buhari first came, we imbibed the culture of queuing, which has remained up till today. And people were not throwing things on the streets, they were putting them in waste paper baskets and so on. Those are little things we learned then. And I must tell you, there was hardly any corruption. Again, as a legal practitioner, I was praying in the court in those days when somebody tried to give a bribe to a clerk in the registry. He just screamed and said, "You want to send me to prison? Don't try it. I'm there to do my job, not to take money from anybody for doing my job." So we need to get back to that era. Although definitely will not advocate a military regime. Definitely. But it has to be a civilian regime, the type we have now, but firmer, stronger. Someone also asked, how can we achieve what I'm saying now? It can be achieved. But I'm definitely not going to say it publicly. There are strategies for giving the executive the power to drive a firm and strong government. If you do a proper analysis of what is happening in terms of corruption all over the country, you will find that the executive is least tainted. I'm not saying it is not, that there are no elements in it that are corrupt, but it's least tainted. And one luck we have is that we have the Buhari, and we have Osinbajo, who have absolute integrity. Both of them, I say absolute. And if we do not make use of them and encourage them, I don't know when again in the history of Nigeria that two people like that will come into government by accident. I don't know. On the allegation of selectivity, before that, someone said, would I support Buhari? Any day. There's no other choice. It's the only choice.
Come 1919, all our hopes are on Buhari and Oshinbajo. Any other thing is disaster. Okay, on the issue of allegation of selectivity, we have debated this quite often. The PDP was in power from 2000 to 2015. Others did not have the opportunity to loot. So the evidence of looting by the PDP is all over the place. We call it low-hanging fruit. If you have corruption fruit hanging like that, I can pluck like that. Why should I climb a tree looking for another one? That is the point. Let us clear the low-hanging fruits first. Then we'll take a ladder and go up and look for other people. Well, we made our public support for Marco very clear, because I believe that we need a number of people whose determination, courage, and integrity is not in doubt, who are ready to fight this corruption head on regardless of the consequences. That's why we supported Marco and came out publicly with it, and that has made us enemies of very powerful companies all over the place. Now, what more can we do in this regard? As I said, it's not everything that I can say here, but I assure you we are making constructive suggestions to the government. I can tell you straight away that we do not need a dictatorship to achieve discipline, to achieve development. You don't. Kagame is not a dictator. I'll give you an example. But there's a way power can be used that those who are enemies of the country, who want to run us down, who want to take everything and leave us as the wretched of the earth, there's a way power can be exercised to cut them to shape. That is what we are thinking of doing. Thank you. The next question is, can the executive go alone in this fight, given the fact that the legislature is not cooperating and we're having problems with the judiciary? That's a very pertinent question. You know, I said, without the judiciary particularly, we're going nowhere in the fight against corruption. Without them. Only today, I was reading in the papers or in the news that a judge in Ekiti State said that EFCC cannot make inquiry or investigate state funds. So the result of that, the consequence of that is that states can loot themselves, the commissioners, the governors can misuse state funds as much as they like, and no one can touch them. Because those states do not have the equivalent of EFCC, and they will never ever create one. So we need EFCC and ICPC to penetrate every angle of the country. A judge has said that. I'm happy EFCC is going to appeal. Those are the things that are talking when I say the judiciary, in many respects, is becoming a serious problem. Because the Ekiti State case, in my view, is one before the whole public. We all read how a plane load of money was flown in from Abuja into Akure Airport and then delivered by road to Ekiti. Everybody knows that. Where did that money come from? Was it legitimately earned? So, when all this is happening and we are saying you cannot investigate, we have serious problems. But, as I said, we have to be creative, even within this constitution. Find an avenue of power to suppress evil and promote good. Yes, thank you very much. Someone suggested that we are going into second colonization because of the state of the country. I beg to differ. If you do research into the period 1951 to 1960, 1960 to 1966, when we had the first set of political parties, that is the era we had the cleanest government ever in this country. Cleanest governments ever. And those people were operating under a colonial government. In fact, the cleanliness and purity with which they operated came under British culture of politics. Colonialism was good as far as that is concerned. When that culture wore off, then our true nature reverted. And that's what we are seeing today. So, whilst without calling for fresh colonization, which is intolerable, we should go back and see the culture which was observed during that colonial period and have a renaissance of it. You will recall, the younger ones will not, those of us who are older will recall that Dr. Azikiwe, Premier of the East, was once accused of misuse of public funds. What did he do? After money was voted for the budget, he took part of it, not for himself, put it in his bank, Pan-African Bank, so that the bank would be able to use it for his business whilst paying interest to government. All that looks so innocent these days. But for that, an inquiry was set up with the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Foster Sitting, as the chairman. They found Azikiwe guilty. Azikiwe had to dissolve his government. Government inherited. He had to dissolve it as a consequence of that because he couldn't go on with that report. And then fresh elections were conducted. Surprisingly, he came back with a larger majority. Yes, I agree that education is critical. Education is crucial. And in a sense, you can even say that as we are getting further away from the First Republic, the quality of education is also dropping. So there must be some correlation. And that is something that has to be addressed. Well, I'm pleased to say that some effort is being made. It may be minimal. The ICPC is penetrating the schools and universities, trying to get them to form a bond with the ICPC in order to introduce a culture of honesty. United Nations to begin 5,000 to survival. For young people to be given opportunities to establish their own businesses, either farming and so on. A lot of money has been earmarked from this money that was recovered. And the joy of that for me is that the money deprived these people of all these things. That money has been recovered and is being plowed back to increase their capacity. Over 500 billion has been set aside under the budget we are running now for this group of people. So when you are considering whether the anti-corruption struggle has been a failure or not, I'm afraid for those who have a doubt, it is a resounding success. Something never seen in this country before. Never. Before this government came, remember subsidies come? Fraudulent people were claiming an average of 382 billion naira a year under subsidy fraud. Money that they didn't belong to them. They will bring empty ships to Lagos and get some government official to sign that it contained many million metric tons. And and then they go and collect subsidy. It was even discovered that one of the ships that was named has been disused for 3 decades. All that has ended. We are saving that 382 billion a year to come back to Nigeria. So much has been done. I want to appeal that before, particularly the very educated ones who appear on radio, television, and newspapers, please make an inquiry. Don't just go and speak. Don't go by impression. Write to Bakak. What has been achieved? Write to the presidency, Mrs. Ways. Ask her what she has achieved under the social program. A lot has been achieved. And I blame this government why it is reticent about telling Nigerians what it has done. Leaving it to some of us on the periphery to talk. They've done a lot. They've done a lot. The government of change has changed things. There's no question about that.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that the elder professor has done justice to this topic today. Can we please give him another round of applause, please? Thank you, sir. In appreciation of your honoring our invitation, we have a small token for you. I want to call on the Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Council, very own Professor Emmanuel Abba, to please present this to the guest lecturer.
You have to forgive my African voice that I married. On behalf of the great federal president of Nigeria, I present this back to you, Mr. Sadi.
Thank you, sir. Please, before you sit down, we want you to say a few words of remarks, please.
I must seek your indulgence that I have an afflicted voice. Over time it will go, but for now you have to make do with it. I would like to stand on existing protocols, but I would like to start my protocols with due respect to the high table from the great students of this university, without which there is no university. The next on my list of protocols is the staff of this great university, without which there is no university. Then, of course, my chairman. You know, I'm chairman here today, but it's my chairman in the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption. I'm a professional lecturer of society. Our serious and amiable Vice Chancellor, fellow members of Council, nice ones, troublesome ones. Where's the troublesome? Where's Agoda? Deputy Vice Chancellors, admin and academic, the registrar, other principal officers, other people, and especially I would like to acknowledge my fellow members of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption who are here.
Professor Bolaji Owasoye, our Executive Secretary. Let them see you. And he's also the incoming chairman of the ICPC. Professor Sadiq Rada, can you let them? And of course, other individual friends like Professor Shehu, the criminologist and director of the Obasanjo Leadership Center, and former DG of Giaba, who are fighting corruption, money laundering, and terrorist financing. Professor Shehu. Oh, Chief, Representative of Chief of Labour Staff. And so on and so forth. Forgive me. Now, who? Yeah, boss. And nobody told me. Okay, military, yeah, boss, you are welcome. They have this impression because they put me in detention for 1 year. And they want to execute me. Without you military, there is no Nigeria. Nigeria will have finished after me. And that is my honest, sincere opinion. Without the military, this country will have gone to the dogs. That doesn't mean you are perfect. But I'm saying we must give you credit. They won't let me write. This man has told me that I didn't recognize the press. Okay, the press you are recognized. Now, there is a relationship between science and social sciences, humanities in general. So, when the management asked me to nominate, whether I could nominate somebody to give the conclusion lecture, I was racking my brain. Normally, you would think inside the box. Just find a professor of technology, a professor of science, who has done one invention, patented or not patented, sold to General Motors or what on the shelf. I told myself that there should be a level of interaction between a science-based and technology university and the humanities. And I thought we fit the bill. I thought of my chairman in Paka, Professor Sagi. Now, you could see that they are not giving you a lecture on law. Syria. They are not giving you a lecture on corruption. It's a vocation nowadays. But they are giving you a lecture on the wider issue of the role of our elites in our human condition. And as scientists, you cannot do without knowledge of social sciences, of your existence in this society. And that is the purpose of that lecture. Now, to me, the purpose of lecture has been enviably achieved. Because I believe your conscience, your science conscience, your robot-like conscience, since you only deal with material science and what they call that in chemistry lab, the tubes and the like. This lecture has excited your conscience about the travails of our existence in this country. Travails that have been occasioned by selfish, consumptive, greedy, alienated elites. Elites led by political elites who has turned our democracy into a government of the greedy, by the greedy, for the greedy. So the elites are responsible business elites, professional elites, accountants. I always argue, no corruption event can be executed successfully without the collaboration, complicity of accountants, bankers, lawyers. Sorry, Professor. Lecturers, after we have left the university, are joined taking money and sex from students. But I've told them in this meeting that if I catch anyone, you'll be dismissed. Well, like that, like. I want the students to know if there is any case of sexual victimization or monetary abandonment, bring it to the attention of management. Me and the vice chancellor, we have that understanding. Now, so elites are responsible, but the political elite are the most culpable, and I'm sure he has brought it to your attention. Osage, I thank you. Now, I always argue on this matter that the only difference between PDP and APC is Buhari and Osinbajo. The presidency of Nigeria is so powerful that with his commitment, his new integrity, he should not be discouraged by the shenanigans of the legislators, the lawyers, senior advocate of Nigeria, and the judiciary. He should put his foot down. If he does that, he will succeed. I have the feeling that as hungry as some Nigerians may be, if a lot of people, some judges, some senior advocates of Nigeria, even professors, if they are put in jail, people will not feed the hunger very much. I am saying, I give Osage, it can be done. It can be done. We are in a democracy, yes, but he says we cannot have unmoderated democracy. We cannot have unmoderated rule of law, where people will do what they want, abuse the processes, abuse rule of law, abuse the hearing, to the detriment of our future and the future of our children. Now, I must say finally that I am not in support of Professor Sage when he says that he's in support of death penalty. I am against death penalty, not because I'm humanitarian. Death penalty is not enough punishment for corrupt people. That is why I'm not against death penalty because of humanity. A man has 20 years blind for his family, his wife, his children. They just execute him one day. He has forgotten. The money goes to his family, they start enjoying. No, seriously. I want a man who has done that to be deprived of the loot. Let him go to prison. Let everybody continue to see him. Let the children see him. The wife see him. To have effect. That is why I'm against death penalty. Sir, I thank you. I know there is going to be both of that, but I must thank you. When I thought of it and I called him, I said, Prof, he said, Femi, I said, yes. I said, you have to give conclusion lecture. He said, what? I've said I will not give lecture again for the foreseeable future. I said, this one, no. Only you must do it. Then he said, Femi, for you, I'll do it. I am very grateful. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the indefatigable and cerebral Professor Odekule has spoken. I believe if we have enough time, I'm sure for the next 2 hours we should be able to stand on that podium to continue professing as a veteran professor. We thank you, sir. Before we go, we have a number of people today that have graced this occasion. Please, if you don't hear your name, it's not as if we do not appreciate your presence. It's just that there are so many, but we need to appreciate a few. In our midst today, we have Dr. S.M. Sai of the Nigerian Police Academy. Hello, you're welcome. We have Air Vice Marshal I. Amin, Commandant Nigerian Air Force Base, Lima. You're welcome. We have Wing Commander L.A. Abu. You're welcome. We have Navy Commander Ojip Lama, Director Safety Naval Headquarters. You are welcome. Mr. George C. Eleban Neko Mina, you are welcome. Mudasi Adedeji Neko Mina, you are welcome. Mr. Adedeji Olatunji Neko, you are welcome. We have Mr. Michael Mapi Neko. We have our employer, Barrister G.B. Aladdin, who is a council member. You are welcome, sir. We have Honorable Halim Agoda present today. You are welcome, sir. We have Alhaji Musa Jibril Matigawa, council member. You are welcome. We have Professor Abu Bakri, Professor Seidu, Dr. Asipita, Professor Onika, all council members, Professor Una, I can see you are welcome. You are all welcome. We want to also thank very own Professor Ernest Aidu, my predecessor. Welcome, sir, as usual, for honoring us. We have Professor Sadiq Rada of BUT, a member of PACAD. Welcome. We have Professor Abdullah Sheikh. You are welcome, sir. Professor Nasu Metuari, DC, IDB University. You are welcome, sir. About 5 months ago, he was my boss. I did my sabbatical under him. You are welcome, sir. We have Dr. Abubakar Mahmoud, Registrar, Federal University of Latvia. You are welcome. We have the representative of the Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, Professor C.B.I. Alawa, is here today. You are welcome. Thank you for coming. We have Nasri Ayana State Polytechnic. We have John Ferris, Emoy Perry, Niger State Polytechnic. We have David Adams, Niger State Polytechnic, and Professor Babani Shega of the University of Maiduguri. You are welcome. We also have the representative of the Vice Chancellor of Kaduna State University. You are welcome. As usual, we also have very senior members of the university. I can see former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Sunday, Professor Sadiku, and a lot of others. Thank you very much for coming. We thank you very much for coming. I want to call on the Chairman, University Ceremonies Committee, Professor Yaya Iaka, to give us a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Chairman of the occasion, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Technology, Mina, Professor Abdullah Bala. On behalf of the Council and the Senate of this university, I want to most particularly thank the convocation lecturer, Professor Sage Isedrua, here present, particularly the representative of the Chief of Air Staff, and the representative of the Chief of Naval Staff. I also want to thank the members, the Executive Secretary of our Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, and the other member of that committee here present. I want to thank you for being here with us. I want to thank our visiting Vice Chancellors and the other heads of tertiary institutions here present with us. I want to thank former Vice Chancellors. We have here with us Professor thank you very much, sir. Professor Akedi is also on his way. He promised to attend this lecture. I'm sure he'll be here anytime from now. Thank you for being here with us. I want to thank the former Deputy Vice Chancellors
for being here with us. Thank you, sirs, for honoring our invitation. I want to thank the professors here present, the deans, the directors, and head of various departments, other members of the university community, and also the students. I want to thank the members of the press, and the great Nigerian students, and other ladies and gentlemen here present. Finally, I want to thank the members of the University Ceremony Committee for making this possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DPC. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this program, but I want to announce that at 6 o'clock today, that's in the next 30-something minutes, we are due to have the Chancellor's Cocktail in honor of the Convocation Lecturer. All of you visiting Vice Chancellors, visiting heads of institution, members of council, members of staff, even members of students, if you are able to make it, you are welcome. We'll be having the Chancellor's Cocktail at the VC's Lodge in the town. You are welcome. So please, as we leave the hall, can we move straight to the VC's Lodge. Thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you very much.